Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and welcome to a special edition of Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I'm here today to talk to you about California Dream Season 4, Episode 12, Woo Oops. So, this is an episode about Sam Woo. Now, Sam Woo is played by Jenny Kwan. And Sam Woo was introduced in Season 2 as a foreign exchange student from Hong Kong. And her actual real name is Sam Woo Deswan Chu. And I've never ever heard of the last name Deswan Chu. And I've even looked it up and I can't find no other person like without last name, not even a famous person, not even this is like the only fictional character. So perhaps because this was in the 90s and representation back then just never mattered, and this is a Peter Ingram television show, most likely is to make fun of like Asian people last name. And because Peter Ingle, he is responsible for Saved by the Bell, the new class, Saved by the Bell, the college years, California Dreams, City Guys, USA High, Malibu, California, and also the reboot of Saved by the Bell. And Jenny Kwan is really like only probably like one of two Asian people in any of his shows and stuff. Like there's that one dude, and then his brother, I think his name is Dan Basco, I think. He's Filipino. He might be a Filipino, like Asian descent and stuff. I don't know if he's Spanish or what, but other than that, there's really been no other Asian person in Peter's like series and stuff. And since this was the 90s, you know how like Married with Children used to make fun of that Hispanic lady last name, most likely it's just to spoof it and stuff, which is really, really, really sad. But Jenny Kwan, her actual real name, I just found this out because she's of like Chinese, Filipino, German descent, and Italian. Her actual real name is Jenny Trinidad Fernando. And so I guess she just added Kwan to it, as like a stage name, because she's changed her names plenty of times, but I never knew her name was Jenny Trinidad Fernando. And I like Jenny Kwan. Like, she's really cool. She was in a girl group back in the day. She was in this show. She was one of the first Asian people I ever saw, like, on television and stuff in the 90s. Because, Asian representation is very, very minimum and stuff. And, like, she was also one of the voices in Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so, like, her character Sam was pretty much like, your everyday go lucky type of girl. She was a valley girl and everything. And she really didn't like, the only time they ever had Asian representation in her culture is when it was Chinese New Year in season 3, I believe, or maybe season 2. And like it was Chinese New Year, and she was happy because she said, she has lucky money and this and that. And so, of course, the other characters on the show was kind of like making fun of like her culture and stuff, like the red envelopes, until they found out there's money in there. And then they used her to take her money to get their car fixed. And there was one scene where one dude was like, insulting her culture because he got tired of hearing all like the stories about like Chinese New Year and all this and that. And everything is made to be made as a joke. They didn't take it seriously, which I wish they would, because I didn't know nothing about Chinese New Year. And it actually flew by my head until I watched Fresh Off the Boat many decades later. And it's really insulting how here's these people that are like white, and they don't want to learn about like another culture, and they're like brushing it off and talking about how they don't want to hear about all her stories and all this other stuff. And it's the 90s for you. That's the only way to chalk it up. It's the 90s for you. And so, like, in this episode, Sam has to learn a very valuable lesson. Oh, also, Sam was also, her and Tony was the first time I ever saw like a real interracial couple on television, other than like, I Love Lucy's show. And this is the first time I ever saw like a black and Asian person like date. And the only other time I've ever seen that happen on television is Grey's Anatomy. So that's been like, this is something very rare. And so, like, in this episode, Sam has to learn a very valuable lesson. Now, there's a side plot with Tiffany. She has a Bambi doll, which is kind of like a Barbie doll, and she looked all over to find it because they're very rare. And her boyfriend, Jake, did not take care of it, and he had to go find like a new one where he had to like get a scalper to get one, and this dude scammed him, and then it turned out she just donated it to charity. Anyway, with Sam's story, Sam is a foreign exchange student from Hong Kong, and she hasn't seen her family in a very long time. Originally, she was living with this other family in season 2 and 3, but then when they left, she started living with, I forget the Hispanic girl's name on this. It's been a good while. And so, like, her father is coming down to see her for the first time in like a very long time, and the band wants to go to like this big old concert where all these famous people are gonna be at, but it's $100 and she doesn't have it, so she keeps trying to borrow money from everybody, and so like they won't lend her the money, and because she's always like borrowing money and stuff, and so for whatever reason, they didn't want to give her character a job when other characters on the show like do. And so, her father's here and he's all like, he gave her a credit card, her first credit card. And he tells her straight up, this is only for like emergencies, life or death. Well, of course, her friends, they put it in her mind like, look, man, this concert's like life and death and all this other stuff, and all these famous bands are going to be there. So, of course, you know exactly what she's going to do. She went to the concert, but she does more than that. She goes shopping, she buys her friends food and this and that. And she says she did all of that because they always buy her stuff and she wanted to return the favor, which is weird because in that one episode about Chinese New Year, she literally lent them money and stuff. Well, she went over her limit and now she owes the bank. And so she tries to like suck up to the bank, by begging and pleading and everything, but it won't work. She even tries selling some of her items and stuff, and it still won't work. So she finally has to cough it up and tell her father. And of course, he's pissed. And when he's mad at her, there's a funny scene where he's talking in Mandarin to her, but I don't know if it's real Mandarin or it's just 90s, let's make fun of Chinese culture stuff. And so his orders are for her to pack her bags and head back home because she is not responsible enough. And, it's the cliche teen girl has like a credit card and, over her limit storyline. So her friends don't want her to leave and she don't want to leave, Plus she's dating Tony. So they get her a job at Sharky's and everything, being a waitress. And she's able to make $500 and stuff. And her dad is very impressed with her that she finally took responsibility and got a job and tried to pay off her debt. And, he has to give her the whole life lesson about how she needs to be more responsible. People really need to be more responsible. That's why I don't get credit cards. I have never had a credit card, but I have messed up my debit card one time in my bank account. And I learned a very valuable lesson in my earlier years in college, like my freshman year. And since then, I've never overdrafted since because that's like, whew. You know what I'm saying? And so since she's able to pay half of her, debt and everything, he lets her stay. And this is one of those things that you can't just give like teenagers a big responsibility like money. They have to really be taught, and when they screw up, they need to get themselves out their own bind, because sometimes their parents aren't going to do it for them. Happy Asian and Pacific Islander month, everybody. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.